Hi, I'm Vicki Westling here with City Speaks. City Speaks is a show that's brought to you by Mayor Wilfred Rosas, for you, the residents for the city of Dunkirk and the surrounding area. And we're going to do something really different this month. It's election season. And because of that, it's important to let our residents and our voters know who our candidates are. The candidates for Chautauqua County are the ones that we're focusing on. So as such, and in order to provide you with as much information possible about each of our candidates, City Speaks will feature interviews with each of them, with our 2 county executive candidates and our 2 district attorney candidates. We're going to show those throughout the month of October, beginning on Friday, October the 2nd. And we've also are coordinating with Doc Hamels from Mayville, and we will be showing some interviews that he has done down there with our candidates as well. So get ready for October. It's going to be a busy month. We want to make sure that everybody gets out and votes. You can watch these interviews on Dunkirk Access 1301 Spectrum here in Dunkirk. You can go to dunkirkaccess.com and watch them on YouTube. And with that, we have with us PJ Wendel, and I'm going to call you PJ, if that's
fine.
Okay.
Yes, certainly.
All right. So PJ is our interim county executive now, and you're a candidate for county executive for this November for the election. So let's start out. I know that there many people do know you. You've been on the legislature. You've been around for a while. Tell me a little bit about who you are and tell the voters who you are.
Well, as Vicki said, my name is PJ Wendel, actually Paul M. Wendel Jr., and we moved here. I've been a county resident since 1977. It'll be 43 years at the end of October. We moved here just before Halloween. If you're from the Celeron area, it was the night before Evans Skateland burned. So it was, I don't know, some people might question that. But anyway, we moved in from Hagerstown, Maryland. My dad relocated with Cummins Engine. So the uniqueness of coming here with development of the economy in Cummins Engine was crucial, and something that I've always cherished as I, lived here and was raised here. I graduated from Southwestern Schools, went there from 2nd grade through graduation, left there and went to SUNY Brockport. I started wrestling at the age of 7, so it was my go-to sport. Played football and track, of course, but wrestling afforded me an opportunity in college. Wrestled SUNY Brockport, very fortunate, good career. Ended up an All-American, national champ, and decided to pursue a career in teaching. Came back to Chautauqua County. This was my home. But while I was in college, I joined the Lakewood Fire Department. I've been a 32-year member, actually a life member now of the fire department after 20 years. 26 years of that I've been an EMT, so I've been serving our community not only as a firefighter but also as an EMT. I've been very instrumental in different projects throughout the county, but most importantly our EMS fly car system. Very instrumental in that as chairman of the Public Safety Committee and also chairman of the legislature. I stayed here and came back here for the simple reason I just love Chautauqua County. About 13 years ago, then the late Tony Caprino was concerned with some things that were happening in the village of Lakewood, and members of the village board were making some adjustments that he felt were inappropriate to the fire department's budget, police department's budget, and something that I'd worked with a long time. And Tony had known me personally and reached out and said, would you consider running? So I did. And in that time, I ran twice for the Village of Lakewood trustee. First time unopposed, second time unopposed, and actually rose to deputy mayor. And in the interim, took the opportunity to expand my career in government. Was afforded the opportunity to run for county legislature. So I ran successfully 5 terms. I was contested once, which I feel is important, that if you're doing a job and you're doing a good job, that the residents recognize that. And they elected me 5 times, and I stayed. 8 years in county government, 4 years were in leadership. I was the assistant majority leader, and last 2 years unanimously twice elected as chairman of the legislature. So my background with not only the EMS and the fire service, law enforcement, working with our public defender, our coroners, different roles I've had as leadership roles in the legislature. But just the fact that, being involved in county government for 8 years brings a great deal of knowledge and experience, and it's something you really need to have an understanding of when you came. And I think what's important is I was the first appointed county executive. And when you appoint somebody, if you think of, right now, President Trump is looking to appoint a Supreme Court justice, and they appoint people based on their qualifications, their skills, and their abilities. And I feel unanimously I was supported and appointed by the entire legislature bipartisanly. So I think that says a lot with, the reflection of my colleagues that I worked with side by side for years and now chose me as their leader. So what's unique about this is I'm running this year. And if successful in November, I'll come back and do the whole thing all over again. For then a 4-year, what I'm doing is actually filling out the remainder of the term for George Borello, who was the county executive. Right. And then we'll come back next year for a 4-year term. So something I knew about. I spent 25 years in education, 20 years at Faulkner. It was a big choice, and I made it knowing exactly what I was getting into. So here we are, and that's a little bit about me.
So now you came in January to fill this part of the term for George Borello because he left to go be senator. Mm-hmm. And did you really know what you were getting into? What kind of surprises have you had?
Well, obviously March 15th, the day of infamy, I call it, was when we declared a state of emergency in Chautauqua County. As far as the initial, entering into the position, not a lot of surprises. I'd worked extensively with the budget process over the years. I knew many, in fact, all of our department heads, just to the extent of how much I worked with them, different based on the department. But had a good running knowledge of everything that was going on, knew what some of the projects that were going on with George, and especially as a chairman, we worked side by side on a lot of the projects, so I was up to speed on everything. So the transition wasn't as challenging as many people would think. But again, when you're there, it's when it's your decision now, it's different. The buck stops with you, and I've taken a great deal of pride in that. And I've said to people early on that I share the success and sometimes burden the failures. And if there's a mistake that's made, I'll own up to the mistake. But the successes we've had, I share with our team, and especially with COVID. There's been a lot of things that have happened throughout this, and nobody expects to be where we are. I went to the NISAC meeting in January, and nobody saw COVID on the horizon. We were worried about the FMAP and our Medicaid funding and how we were going to correct that with the state, and this wasn't even a concern.
Right, this really did it to us, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, and but I think the best part about this is surrounding yourself with good people,
right.
and relying on those people. My department heads, my employees, everybody has been instrumental in what we've done so far.
Well, let's go there. We talked about the budget and we talked about COVID. COVID has certainly had an impact on the budget. Mm-hmm. And you have taken a little bit of criticism because you've presented your budget that has not yet passed. The legislators have to pass that. Mm-hmm. But you presented it with a 2%.
5-cent reduction.
5-cent reduction. Yeah. So how can you, in my mind, and I'm not an economist, so bear with me here, but I'm thinking we're already having some problems, and now we're going to get a reduction, and I want a reduction because I'm a taxpayer, but what happens next year? How did you make that decision?
Well, first of all, that decision was made based on my finance team and my budget team as we prepared it. And I gave some parameters when we started. And throughout the entire process, one of the positions I took was a 10% reduction in local share. Not everybody was able to achieve that. Some of them were, some weren't. It averaged out to be about 6.8% reduction in local share. And the reason I said that is because what can we do without? What services can we remain to provide for our residents, but what can we do without, maybe for a year? And we couple that with, I formed a COVID health team, my response team early on. They dealt with the health issue. And about maybe 4 or 5 weeks into that, I was approached by Kitty Crow and Kathleen Dennison, our finance and budget directors, respectively, said we need to focus on the budget. So I formed a COVID finance team, which was Pierre Chagnon, a chairman, Chuck Nazaro, the minority leader and chairman of audit control, and Jay Gould, longtime legislator who's been on audit control, along with our human resources person. At that time was Jess Wisniewski, now is Gene Riley. So when we started that, we made some really tough decisions. We amended our budget for a $4 million reduction. We told everybody, sharpen your pencils. What can we do without? What can we give up? And that $4 million reduction amendment to the budget was helpful, but also most importantly was a $1.1 million savings from our employees that were taking a voluntary furlough. Now I thank every single employee, because not only the employees that took the furlough, and we did that with the understanding that the unemployment insurance was there. There was a $600 bonus as it was presented by the federal government. So we knew our employees were taken care of in that respect. So we would maintain their health insurance. They would maintain seniority, everything. When they came back, they would come right back. But the furlough went, I believe, early May until July 31st. And actually, everybody came back on August 3rd because the 31st was the end mark for the federal unemployment money. But that was huge. So not only the employees that took it, but the employees that stayed, because they had to pick up the extra work. They picked up, and maintained county government to the levels we've always expected. I mean, county residents could tell you, maybe with the exception of the DMV that seems to be a crux for some people, but realistically, all of our services remain the same, whether a phone call or online. So it was important. So in essence, we reduced our budget by $5.1 million, which put ourselves in a very good position coming into the budget preparation cycle. One of the things they criticized, it was in the paper in Jamestown, that maybe we're overestimating our sales tax revenue. Our sales tax revenue is the same revenue we projected or budgeted for in 2020, which is only $432,000 up from 2019. But having said that, early on in 2020, we were ahead of our budget projection. So had COVID not happened, we felt very confident that our sales tax revenue would have exceeded our budgeted numbers, and then we were in a better position. One of the things we look at is all of this budgeting is without any sort of federal money. So if there's federal monies that come back, which they're looking to do more Treasury right to the local communities, not to the state and then out to us, but right to the local governments, that's just another piece of the puzzle we have. Now, I don't know where that stands. I don't know where we're going with that. Congressman Reed is keeping us in the loop with that. As you know, he's created his own problem solvers caucus. They made a presentation. But in essence, we made that budget with very sound decisions. And I wouldn't present it if it was something that, not staging something for the election, not trying to grandstand. This is what I felt was appropriate. And the reason being is we still have to override our tax cap. For the first time that anybody can remember, the tax cap is 2% or less inflation. Well, inflation is only 1.56%. So this year's tax cap is at 1.3 million. Last year was 2.3 million. So we had to stay under that. And even with a 5-cent reduction, we're still 12 cents over that cap. So
now, are you getting it? What are your legislators? How are they feeling about this? Do you think that this is going to be? What are they going to do when they get the budget to approve it? Right?
Yeah. Well, that'll be. Some of them. Terry Neba was very open at the meeting that said, he's been in the legislature quite a while, and it's a very sound budget, a very solid budget. He was very impressed with the budget that we presented. So it's in the lap of the legislators. Legislators, there are some things they could look at. We're still $975,000 over the tax cap. So if they could find reductions to $900,000, it's almost $1 million, then we can stay under. But they're a good group of people, and it's up to them now to look at that and make their recommendations.
Tell me, what is your vision for Chautauqua County? What do you see? What are your goals?
My goal is to grow. I mean, obviously, I'm a child of, growth in Chautauqua County. Cummins Engine came here in, I think, 1975, and actually 1977 when they actually opened when I was here. And that's what I want to look at. But there's things I talked about early on, microeconomic development and macroeconomic development. So as you know, we reached out, and one of the things that happened, I was watching television one morning at the fire station, went in and was on a treadmill walking, and noticed they were having a problem with Amazon up in Grand Island. So I called Mark Geis and Rich Dixon. I said, let's get on this. And we did. We reached out to, Invest Buffalo Niagara, got our name on the books, and, we do have 2 spots that they were looking at. And that's still moving forward. But what I call that macroeconomic development because if they come in here, they're looking at 1,000 jobs, which is great. But do we want to forsake 1 job for 1,000 or 10 other small businesses that provide 100 residents or 100 employees? So that's what we're looking at. We want to develop all businesses, be it small business, large business. Small business development is incredible because right now our IDA, even though it's been criticized, was given a federal grant for $10.5 million, the largest sum of money in Western New York. The region, not just Buffalo, Niagara, and Chautauqua County, but the entire region of Western New York. And we were given $10.5 million based on our track record, based on the ability to leverage the money and to provide sound loans to our residents and their businesses. So great economic development. There's a lot of things on the move right now. Of course, we can't divulge everything because they're in the planning stages, but a lot of economic development, a lot of things moving. We had a meeting today with the NRG building that's, right here in their shadows, yes, and what we're going to do to look into that. There's a lot of great projects, a lot of opportunity there. So I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse, but I could tell you, and it's not saying this because it's, coming up on November, but there are a lot of things in the works right now, a lot of discussions being had, and there's a lot of great growth that is going to be happening in Chautauqua County. So
So when you talk about economic development, there are a lot of things happening for sure. There are also a lot of pieces to that. You mentioned the IDA, the CCIDA,
Yep.
all the little IDAs and things within the different communities of
Yep.
the area. Are you working to pull those together? Are you working with the mayors of all the cities or villages?
Certainly. One of the things that happened, when COVID first started, one of the things I did was listen. And it's really important, when you're in a position, if you are not in the trenches, if we don't have the outbreaks that everybody else had, you listen to what everybody else is doing. It's one of the things I prided myself on too, is listening. Well, that's their mistake. It's not going to be my mistake. That was good for them. I'm going to make it better for us. So I listened to everybody as we went through that. So one of the things we did was worked weekly. I was meeting, actually it was 3 times a week, meeting with all of our mayors and supervisors via conference call, whatever questions they have, whatever things we could do for them, whatever information we could give them. So yes, one of the things I also talked about early on in my campaign as a unity of effort is bringing everybody together. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. We talk to our mayors and supervisors. Right now it's once a month because the COVID numbers have started to decrease. But even when Dunkirk Fieldbrook Foods picked up, we still met with, via phone. So we're going to continue to do that and have that open communication with our mayors and supervisors, along with Mayor Rosas and Mayor Sunquist from the city. So always going to be my goal is to work hand in hand with all of our communities, making sure we're all growing, not just certain sections of Jamestown or Chautauqua County.
Talking about growth, let's talk about green energy, wind farms. We've got solar energy. We've got a solar energy, I don't know what they call it, a solar energy farm. That's in the plans. Where are you with all of that?
Well, one of the things we're looking for is, green energy has a lot of different components. Right now, a lot of it is subsidized. Excuse me, my allergies have started to bother. I don't know why. One of the things we talked about is I don't want to see windmills off Lake Erie shoreline. Not at all. One of the things that happened, a lot of people have criticized the county because these wind farms have gone up. Those are all contracts between the towns and the residents of those properties and the wind farms themselves. Again, the only problem with the wind farms is they have to get bigger to be more efficient. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see 500 and 600 foot towers here in Chautauqua County because that's not, one, there's pilot programs that doesn't really resonate a lot of revenue. And although there are jobs, they're short-lived, and the long-term jobs, there's only maybe a dozen or so with these problems. So we want to keep that in mind. But the other thing, too, is solar farms. We're very, keen on what's happening because once that solar farm loses, its life is run out, what are we doing with those solar panels? They create heavy metals. There's not something you can just dismantle and take to a landfill. There's a decommissioning process, and those are things we're looking for. But right now, the concern is a lot of this is sponsored by money. There's a lot of subsidies to that. Where are we going to be when the subsidies run out? And are these numbers exactly what they're telling us? They're predicting, this type of an output or that type of an output based on megawatts and so forth. But, some of the projects, the solar arrays are 12% effective. That means if we're running an array for 100 minutes, 12 minutes, it's actually working. The other 88 minutes, what is it doing? So those are all concerns for us. But, we've had a lot of public outcry with some of the wind farms, and we urge every resident, if this is coming to your town or village, be outspoken. If you're against it, speak out. A lot of people came to the legislature several months in a row. We're very upset about the wind farms. That was beyond us. That had already taken place. We couldn't come back and change that. But we ask every resident, if this is something you're opposed to, speak out. Green energy is there, yes. There's a lot of potential for it, but we still don't know. There's still a lot of unanswered questions to green energy.
Right, and there are a lot of questions, and people are always worried about, how tall will the windmills be? Are we going to have them in Lake Erie? What are the solar panels? And certainly those things are issues. You bring a lot of things to the position. You've had 8 years, did you say, as a county legislator? Yep. So you're fairly familiar with what's going on. What your experience as a legislator, you held some different positions. What positions did you hold that would qualify you to continue as county executive?
Well, one, most importantly, was chairman of the legislature. I was there for 2 years, unanimously voted both times, working with people across the aisle, which is really important. So if you remember, the legislature was at 25 when I was first elected, and now it's down to 19. And since then, we've had a supermajority, on the Republican side, but that has never been noticed when we deliberate, when we talk, when we work things through. We have a very working legislature right now. I was very proud of that we continued that effort, we continued that open dialogue, we continued working across the aisle. Also bringing back to the chairman of public safety. But I think most importantly, I was on the audit control committee, I was on administrative services committee, chairman of public safety for many years. but most importantly, the chairman of the legislature, because that encompasses all of our committees, working with all of our departments, and really getting an understanding for what is going on in Chautauqua County government, and understanding what is happening and where things go and how the process works.
Okay. The only other question that I have that we haven't really talked about is the staffing issue. And we talked a little bit about having some people out on furlough, and let's assume that that's not the case now.
Correct.
But you do have staffing issues at the county level. Does your budget include any decrease in that staffing?
Some places, some departments, they're not filling positions. And we talked about that the other day. I spoke with our union president and their concerns with the staffing issues there. We are right now at a very minimum staffing level. Some of the positions we're looking at isn't something new to this year. These are positions that haven't been filled for many years. This goes back to, even Vince Horgan's administration and George's administration as well, George Borrello, that there were positions that hadn't been filled. So, those positions are the ones that we've reduced or taken out of the budget. But one of the things we're really concerned about is our workforce, because more importantly, our road crews. You need to have a robust workforce to make sure safety is being taken care of and make sure we're assuring safety with our projects. So one of the things that they've discussed with me is where would I be when it comes to our labor force. And the last thing we want to do is to minimize our labor force. We're at very minimum levels now. Greg Edwards and his administration made a great deal of reduction in that, and we don't want to get to those levels where we start to decrease the services we provide our residents. So it is a balancing act. It's something we watch all the time.
Okay. PJ, it's wonderful. Look at the camera. Tell the voters why they should vote for you. Why should you be our next county executive?
Well, I think it's really important as we talk about strong leadership, and leadership is something I've been doing most of my life, whether it's in the fire service, in academia, as a teacher for 25 years. I've had my principal certification for the last 7 of those years. So, leadership is something I've done, throughout my entire career. But more importantly, being the county executive isn't something you can learn on the fly. It's really important that if you look, the last 3 county executives were former legislators, even going back to Jack Lenzer, another very successful county executive. We're all legislators prior to coming to office. And I think it brings with it a great deal of experience, a great deal of knowledge, and an understanding of what the needs are for the county and how we get those needs and how we can get through certain situations. Working together, I think, is important. But the difference between myself and my opponent is I've been here. I've been a resident for 42 years. Chautauqua County is my home. This is a place I know and I love. I reach out to my residents. I reach out to individuals that want to talk and sit down and ask me questions, whether it's the North County or the South County. It doesn't really matter. To me, it's one county. It's Chautauqua County. And that's what I bring, is an experience and a workforce and a work ethic that I feel is somewhat second to none. People still ask me. I'm still in my office before 8 o'clock every morning, although our day doesn't start until much later than that, I think 8:30 officially. And I'm usually there. In my office, I'm the first one in, the last one out, and I think that's what I bring to the table. This is a 24/7 job. People can always get a hold of me. I can always be reached, and I'm looking to take Chautauqua County to the next level. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of potential, and I just want to see how high we can take Chautauqua County. And as your next county executive, you have my commitment to do as much as I can to grow Chautauqua County and make this a place that our children want to come back. I've got a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old. I would love nothing more for them to come back and reside in Chautauqua County as I did when I left. This is where I love, this is where I live, and this is where I call home. And my dedication is to the residents of this county.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving your time to City Speaks. Thank all of you for watching. You can watch City Speaks daily on Spectrum 1301. Again, check the listings for October because we're going to have all the candidates there. You can go to DunkirkAccess.com, watch this show and all of our City Speaks shows at any time. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.